Hello everybody, it's Allison. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is a special video because this is part of a video hop for the Alex Syberia Designs October 2024 release. So I'm very excited to be participating, and here is the card that we'll be making in today's video. It's actually a one-layer stamped scene card. Something that I don't do very often, so it was a lot of fun to do something different. Now, like I said, this video is part of a hop. The details are in the description below, but be sure to leave a comment in order to qualify for one of the 4 prizes. You'll also find a link to the next person in the hop for more chances to win. So again, just read the description below and participate. All right, this is the stamp set, the new stamp set that I'm going to be featuring today. This is the Smile More stamp set, and I love how on the back of the stamps from Alex Syberia, you see colored images, and look at those adorable little slippers. And here is a card that I made with this set. It actually uses die cuts. That's the Foxtrot alphabet set that I spelled relax with, and I used the matching die for the cute little chair, but I really wanted to do a stamped scene, a one-layer card, and I certainly have never showed that in a video before, so that's what we're going to do. So let's jump in. All right, to create my scene, I am bringing in another stamp set. This is the Fa La La Friends. This came out last year around this time, and I'm going to be using the sleigh and some presents from that set. And you can see I've stamped my elements on a piece of masking paper, and we're going to start fussy cutting. Now, as far as fussy cutting goes, I don't do it a whole lot, but when I have done it, I have always used this little cutter bee scissors, these little yellow scissors. And you're going to see me switching over to my new Tim Holtz mini recoil snips. I'm testing these out. I really love them. They're nice and sharp. And by the way, this little bow here on top of the presents, I don't need to mask that because I'm not going to be coloring that in. So anything that's just a black line that you're not going to color doesn't need to be masked. So I'll just snip that off and continue cutting around the presents. And now here in between the sleigh and the runners, or whatever they're called, you don't need to fussy cut that space out. I'm just going to cut the sleigh in parts. As long as you have pieces that cover all parts of the stamped image, it doesn't matter. And in fact, I didn't even need the bottom of the sleigh for my scene. So I'm just trying to get more used to these Tim Holtz snips. They're definitely easier on the old hands, that's for sure. Less cramping is always a good thing. And it really didn't take long to cut out all of these little masks. All right, so now that they're all cut out, I'm going to use them to help me make my scene. This is a piece of copy paper, and this is just going to be my practice piece. And I'm putting it in my MISTI that has my waffle flower grip mat in it. And so once I have my little mask down, I'm taking my stamp and just putting it on top of it. And I'm going to stamp the sleigh first because whatever is in the very front of your scene gets stamped first. And now that it's stamped, I'm going to add the mask on top so that I can then add the elements that will be behind the sleigh. And look at that adorable fox. These critters in this new stamp set are so cute. Now, I'm not going to show you all of this practice piece since you'll essentially see the same technique on the final piece, so we're just going to jump right into the final piece. Now, I have switched to my other MISTI that doesn't have the grip mat in it, and that's because I'm going to be swapping out my 2 pieces constantly, and I need them to be in the same exact position in the MISTI. So I'll be putting them right into the lower corner and using my magnet. And again, I'm going to start with the sleigh. And I'm just lining it up on that practice piece. And once it's lined up, I can bring in my good paper. Now I'm using Nina 80-pound paper, which is what I normally use with my alcohol markers. And it's the same exact size as that practice paper. It is 6 inches by 3 inches for a mini slimline card. So you're just going to see a lot of swapping out between these 2 papers. You could build a scene without doing this practice piece first, but I just felt more comfortable practicing since I hadn't done this in a while. And now here I'm going to stamp this present and the hat at the same time because both of these stamps are going to be in front of the fox. So it's time to put the mask onto the sleigh. I would say that's the hardest part of this whole thing, remembering to put the masks on. I did forget a couple times and I had to restart. Thankfully, it's not that intricate of a scene, so it was easy to recreate. So now it is time to stamp the fox. And I did find that when you're dealing with hats and little elements like that, it's hard to get it perfectly aligned because you're looking through the stamp, and that's not all that easy. But I did come up with a solution for this later on, so stick with me. All right, so here we're stamping the fox. And now it's time for this big stack of presents. And that means I have to add in the mask for the fox. Now, because these presents hang down past the sleigh, I'm just grabbing a scrap of masking paper to cover that part up. Doesn't have to be any particular shape, just as long as it covers that open space under the sleigh. So now it's time for the big reveal, and this is the best part, or the scariest part, depending on how you want to look at it. So this is when I noticed that the fox and the hat were just ever so slightly off because his cute little tuft of hair is sticking out above the hat. And I did decide to restamp this without the hat because honestly, he looks cuter without it, I think. So here he is without the hat. And I am using that hat now for the penguin. And I lined that hat up with my practice sheet where the other hat was. Now I'm switching back to my other Misty that has my grip mat in it. And that's because it occurred to me that something I've been showing a lot of lately is going to help me finish this scene. And that is the carrier sheet that comes with the waffle flower grip mats. It's just a heavy piece of acetate. But I'm putting it over my good panel and I'm lining up the penguin with the hat. But it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned because it's stamped on the acetate. And now I can move my panel around underneath the acetate to line it up. Now the acetate's not moving because it's clinging to the grip mat below. And once I have that penguin perfectly lined up with that hat, I can just stamp it. Now, don't forget to put the mask on the hat. And then you can stamp the penguin, and it's going to look exactly like it did the way it was stamped on the acetate. So I'm going to do that for the little string or whatever you want to call this that he's holding that's pulling the sleigh. And again, I can move my paper around underneath because wherever that stamp is on the acetate is where it's going to stamp on the final panel. So once I have it lined up, I'm going to add the mask for the penguin and go ahead and stamp this. So it seems like I'm all done, but I did feel like there was room for another present in the sleigh. And more presents is a good thing, right? So this time I'm going to use my carrier sheet to help me complete my scene. And I realized this is just a great way to create a scene without having to make a whole practice sketch like I did earlier. You just test everything out on this sheet and then move your panel around underneath if you need to, and you know you're going to get perfect placement. So the next time I create a scene like this, I think this is going to be a big time saver and honestly a big confidence booster. All right, with the magic of film editing, this panel is now all colored. My little fairies came and colored it for me. No, I did color this. I will have all the colors I used listed on my blog, along with all the details for my cards today. So I'll have a link to that blog below. But now we have to color in the sky. And I just fussy cut a little hill for the snow. And I cut that out of the masking paper. And so I added that on there. And now I'm adding all of the other masks. So this masking paper that I'm using is so old because I haven't really been masking much. But I did just order some from Spellbinders. It just arrived today, so I'm anxious to try that. Now, what I'm doing here, and I'm sorry it's kind of off screen here, I am using saltwater taffy Distress Oxide to blend my sky, and I thought making a pink sky was, I don't know, kind of different. And so I'm not brushing towards the masks. I'm kind of starting on the masks and going out into the sky. I don't want to accidentally pull up some of that masking paper, but it worked. Now this is worn lipstick that I'm coming in with at the top just to darken up the top of the sky. And I used Distress Oxide because they blend so easily and I didn't want to mess around with ink blending too much. So now I am pulling my masks off and seeing what is going on. Now here, when I pulled this off the sleigh, I noticed this big space, and that's because when I put the presents on there, it blocked off part of the sky that was, under the sleigh. So I'm going to put my sleigh mask back on, add a few other random masks, and then just carefully come back in with my brush and the saltwater taffy Distress Oxide just to fill in that area. So now I'm going to start pulling off the rest of the masks. And look at that. How magical is that? Now there's inevitably going to be some spaces around your masks where there's white space, and that's okay. I am taking one of my Waffle Flower shader brushes. This is the 2+, and this is a flat-tipped angled brush that is so perfect for getting into small spaces. I reach for these brushes so often when I'm crafting, so this came in really handy, and I filled in that space. But you can also take Copic markers and fill in those little spaces. Now, because oxides are kind of chalky looking, it really kind of dulled these black bows on top of the presents. Remember the ones that I said you didn't have to mask? They just don't look as sharp, so I decided to take a fine tip pen and go over those lines. Now, I got a little heavy-handed with the pen, and then I just kept going. And, well, I may have distorted some of those stamped lines, but hopefully the cute critters are enough of a distraction. Now I did come in with a gray Copic marker to add some shading under the penguin and the sleigh, just to add a little bit of detail. It's hard to see in the final picture just because of lighting, but it's there. And here's where I totally threw caution to the wind. Inks really dry back lighter than when they go on, so I felt the need to darken the top of the card again. So this time I'm coming in with Festive Berries Distress Oxide and just hoping that I don't accidentally ruin the whole scene, but I didn't, and I'm glad that I came in with this darker color. Now I could have gotten an even darker result with Distress ink instead of the Distress Oxide, but I just was really relying on the easy blending of these oxides. Now I'm jumping to the finished card because the only other thing I really did was add the sentiments. These are from the Christmas Sentiments stamp set, and I used that technique with the carrier sheet again to line the stamp up on the panel and make sure that it was straight before doing the final stamping. You've seen me do that in videos before, and that's, like I said earlier, how I got the idea to help with the stamped scene. Now I did finish with a white gel pen. I put little snowflakes all over the sky and even on the presents and the critters. I thought about splattering with white paint, but at this point I was done and I was not going to take any more risks. And I just love this card. It's so different than what I've been doing lately. I love my die cuts, but this was fun and a nice little challenge, and I love it. Okay, I do want to share some other cards that I've made with this release. This is a card I made with the Urban Blooms die, and I will have details for these cards in my blog. Again, link to the blog below. But this was a really fun card to make and kind of surprising how I made it, so definitely check out my blog. Now these next two cards use the Whimsy Blooms bouquet, and this first one uses the new Bloom die with that beautiful font. And the second card I made into a Christmas card because any die set that I can stretch into a holiday set is a winner for me. All right, I'm going to leave you with a reminder about the video hop. Again, leave comments below, click on the links to get to the next video and participate. Leave everybody some love along the way. I appreciate you being here with me today. I, again, loved making this card. I hope that you loved watching it and maybe learning some new techniques. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.